Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Morgan, Director of Programming for ATX Television Festival, and thank you for tuning in to Season 10. Wherever you are in your virtual festival adventure, we are excited to be able to share this conversation with the amazing creative team behind the HBO Max original Titans. If you're a fan of Titans, you already know just how immersive, thrilling, and beautifully constructed this world is. From the costumes to the effects to sets, stunts, everything. One of our favorite things at ATX is getting the opportunity to showcase just how many people and skills go into creating the episodes that make it to screen. So we're thrilled to have this team here to take you inside the making of a superhero series, and an excellent one at that. That said, if you're watching this and haven't seen Titans, go ahead and stick around. I promise you'll be adding it to your binge list by the end of this panel. And now I'd like to bring out our wonderful moderator, Damian Holbrook from TV Guide Magazine and TV Insider, to kick us off. Hi, Damian.
Hello, thank you so much, Jennifer, and welcome to everyone at the ATX TV Festival. So happy to be here and so happy to be talking with you guys about Titans. I love ATX TV Festival because they do look behind the scenes and they give us so much insight into how these TV shows that we love work. And Titans is definitely a show people love. So I am super excited to have this panel talk about how they've built this world. So first we have showrunner and executive producer Greg Walker.
Sorry.
There he is. Hey, Greg. Director and cinematographer Boris Moisovsky. All right. Production designer Ian Brock.
Hey there.
Hello. And costume designer Laura Jean LG Shannon.
How's it going?
Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much. And you guys, when you're watching along, if you are out there, you want to use the hashtag TV4All. And the proper Twitter or official handle is at ATX Festival across all platforms. So stay tuned for all that stuff. So you guys, I'm so excited because the show's been gone for so long. Season 2 ended, it feels like at least a pandemic ago. So, but the great thing is during this time down, people had a lot of time to go rewatch it, especially people new to maybe HBO Max. So going through the grid here, I just want to know, starting with Greg, just describe for the viewers, what exactly is a showrunner? What is your job?
Okay, so I started as a writer and I'm still a writer. So I'm kind of like the head writer of the show. So I'm responsible for the kind of the creative content, the storylines, the character builds, the kind of world universe that we've built since the pilot, written by Jeff Johns, created by Jeff Johns, Akiva Goldsman, and Greg Berlanti. Since then, I've been the kind of architect of that world, working with my partners to kind of build that out. I work intimately with production, so that when we get a script with the three people there, LJ, Ian, and Boris and I are talking all the time about creating that world episodically. So how you do it each episode, we do 13 a season. We have been doing it. So building that out and making sure that we have scripts that are good and shootable, and continue to push it creatively. So what we want to go, how we want it to look, how we want the show to evolve over time.
Okay, and then Ian, as a production designer, I want to hear about where do you start your job basically on a show like this?
I start my job with Greg personally. That's where we, pretty well everything is coming from. I'm coming in cold, so there's 2 seasons already here. So LJ and Boris have been on that. We're just talking it through as what the new look of Gotham is with the writers and the director, and of course Boris and Fraser are DOPs. Boris does double duty, so it's amazing. But we just literally talk about what the season's gonna go, how it's gonna go. And even if we don't know about it at the beginning, we there's big beats we were aiming towards at the end. So.
Okay, and then all right, Boris. So you were cinematographer and then now a director as well.
Yeah, I prefer cinematographer because it does relate it to cinema, and I think that's what we like to kind of like. We are the feature television show. That's what we like to think, yeah, cinematography and directing are related because everything comes from the story and the characters. So for me, that transition doing both is actually kind of goes hand in hand. I don't differentiate between the two that much actually, because I have done it before.
Right, and I'm guessing a lot of your work really is reliant on what Ian has built around all these people.
Ian totally, what Ian does, he makes me look good and he figures out all the complicated things, and I come and say like little things that like don't mean that much. Ian is brilliant. We're old friends, and you know, I suggested that we, you know, for this season, I was like, I think we should definitely bring Ian in. He's a fan of the show, and he's just brilliant.
Nice. And now, LJ, you have what I think a lot of people think is probably the coolest job in the world is creating superhero costumes. And you haven't just done Titans, you've done a lot of superhero costumes, right?
I do, yes, and I agree. It's the coolest job in the world. I'm a very fortunate woman.
And did you start on the pilot?
I did actually. I was brought in to work on the show even before Greg Walker was on the show, actually, because I was working on another show with the executive producers with the Berlanti team and Jeff Johns, and that was going really great. And so I met with Jeff and Akiva, and we started designing the Dick Grayson Robin character before we even had, you know, our creative meetings with the studio and the network to, you know, have the show come to fruition. And it was, you know, the edict was that we create a cinematic costume for this character. And that sort of helped whet the appetite for Warner Brothers to get us going with the show. And then Greg came on, and that was an awesome moment for us to all kind of get in a room and become creative partners for the rest of the pilot and into now season 3.
Nice. All right. So Ian mentioned creating the look for Gotham. So let's talk about this, Greg. Season 3, you are taking the Titans from San Francisco to Gotham City. Probably one of the most iconic fictional creations, locations in history, aside from like Metropolis and like Middle Earth. What were you thinking? You had it good.
I know that's the story, though, right? That's the story of the Titans this year. You know, they had it good in San Francisco, and it was a story about, you know, the kind of classic, you know, the kind of way to look at heroes and characters and journeys is to, you know, you take these characters, you put them up in a tree, and then you watch them try to find their way down. And so we felt it was a good tree, Gotham. You know, it was a very complicated tree with lots of branches and scary and dark, and you could get really lost and in trouble. Right. So yeah, I think we wanted to give them a new set of challenges. And basically from the story point of view, we felt like they had conquered San Francisco in a way, that they were accepted, that they were lionized, they were seen as heroes. And so we wanted to give them some new challenges. And what bigger challenge than Gotham? To go back not only to where the biggest villains are, and the most iconic kind of Bat family villains, but also where a lot of Titans lives in a psychologically grounded, emotionally grounded world as much as we can, where, you know, people shoot fire out of their hands. But in that world, you know, many of our characters, especially Dick Grayson, Nightwing, a lot of his trouble started in Gotham. So to go back to where your troubles are, to kind of play with that "you can't go home again" idea felt right for us. And then building out the look of it, well, it's much easier to shoot Gotham in Toronto, where we shoot on a technical level, than San Francisco. It's not a hilly city, though there's water, and we did the team did an amazing job of creating San Francisco. You know, Toronto is a big metropolis. It provides many of the kind of dark and scary spots that we know Gotham to be, and we were working with a lot of the antecedents. So you're looking at, you know, the world that Nolan created, and the world of the comics and of the animated series, and trying to work with that, but with this distinctive Titans look. And that's what, to me, is what amazing, what Boris, Ian, and LJ have put together, is this really unified look of where, you know, Bruce lives and where Dick was raised and where Barbara Gordon is, and to kind of come back to that place and have it really live. It's been exciting.
And what is your relationship, or the show's relationship, with DC Comics, as far as you getting kind of access to the vault of characters, locations, gadgets?
Yeah. So this is basically our business plan. We send Jeff Johns at night in there with a mask, a hoodie, and he runs and steals characters out, and the alarm goes off, and, you know, we get away with what we can. Well, having Jeff there, who when we started the show, Jeff was, a head of or co-head of DC Television, DC Films. He was somebody who was very actively involved in the DC world in terms of procurement of characters and kind of character design, where they go and what movies and TV shows. So he had a really good, 1,000-mile view of where the universe had been laid out. So he knew what was available, what was not. Additionally, Jeff wrote Titans comics. So he really knew and had an intimate relationship with a lot of these characters, and he was inspired and excited about some of those characters. So that, with Akiva's deep knowledge of Titans, we kind of early on kind of secured some characters who we wanted going forward, and you've seen some of them and you haven't seen all of them, and then went into deep dark negotiations in a vault room in Burbank for the other ones we needed.
So, and that's the super exciting thing is, like, as a fan of these books and the show, knowing that and it's amazing that it took so long for any of the superhero shows to like grab some of these characters. Like Jason Todd is a beloved comic book character. Donna Troy is amazing. And I love that you guys were able to get them and make it look so cool. So let's start talking to Boris about this whole idea, because you started with at the beginning as well, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
So your job was really, especially because the viewers had kind of been raised in the last decade on the CW shows and that palette and that look and that tone. Your job really was to immediately set some kind of visual that told us what kind of show we're getting into, right?
Yeah, it was actually, to be honest with you, that was an easy job. And people often ask about this, but when I met Greg, I come from drama, I come from independent cinema, etc. So what Greg said, this word that we kind of said it in that interview together. I was in Czech Republic or in Germany somewhere in a car, and Greg said we wanted to be grounded, and I also wanted it to be like something that relate, because these characters are very real. Yes, they shoot fire out of their hand, but when you relate to them because they have the same emotions that we have, etc. And that's how we wanted to present them, and that we wanted to present them within a world that makes sense to us, and then is enhanced by other visual elements that maybe don't happen in our real world. But it had to be grounded first, and then how dark can we go? And it's like I'm the most fortunate DP in the world, because we had that discussion then, and then after that we kind of never had a discussion, because we just kind of agreed to, like, I don't know, Greg, if we ever actually had a disagreement over any looks in our show.
Well, I mean, not to blow smoke, but I was dazzled because Boris is, such a photographer and such a beautiful photographer. The images that came back, Damien, these kind of, look at our show has to be the most nominated and awarded comic show on the visual side. Boris, Brendan, and Fraser have all been nominated and won for CSC. Boris we've been nominated for an ASC award. So they just immediately blew me away with the images that we were getting. So I mean, I just shut up at that point and just kept on. Boris would send me images on stills, and I was so excited because I knew that I knew we were going to evolve past the CW shows, who do a great job with what they're doing, but they have different constraints. But I think we were also making a really visually aggressive show in a way that we didn't need to, we were getting to do it. And that was what's so exciting. And it pushed everybody. So then we get, production designers who want to build to sets to make it look like that. And we have LJ putting people in these spaces that really shine. And suddenly the show, it's hard to keep up with the writing with it, because the show's so darn beautiful that
Right.
You kind of want to sometimes just have it be, nobody says anything. They just stand around in these beautiful.
Well, that's the thing. There were some shots, and it's like when you watch enough TV, like pilot versus episode 102, the difference in what a look can change can be staggering. We're sold on the idea of what a pilot looks like, and then we go into like the studio. But this show, first episode to the season finale that you just had, like, the tone has never faltered. And there were shots, I think it was in the pilot, it was an aerial shot of Corey driving. And it was the car going through this like landscape that was barren and bleak, and you just felt it. But then you had that incredible sequence in her hotel room that was shot like almost in a wide frame of just this fight happening, and Boris used it was cinematic. and this show continually sticks to the cinematic approach.
Well,
Well,
that's
one
what.
thing- I'll just jump in on Boris before, just because, you know, and I have less to say about this, but one of the things that Boris and the team really, for somebody who worked on shows, they were always shooting in California or New Mexico or places locally. What was so exciting about, for me, and I love winter, was the way that Boris and the team embraced, and they had to, the landscape in Ontario. So you have those bleak surroundings, you have snow, you know, you have darkness and gray, and you have colors that you just don't normally see in the palette. And I really responded to that. But go ahead, Boris.
No, I just wanted to say that you know, all of this is not possible if you're not enabled and kind of if at the head, and in this case Greg, enabled us and encouraged us to like explore and really take risks. And I don't know if I'll ever work with somebody like Greg again. I don't think he gets enough credit. And you know, Ian and LJ know this. Like, it's, you know, we're just blessed. Like, we can create all the time, and that doesn't happen on other TV shows. So, you know, I'm forever grateful for that. And that look comes from that first.
Okay. And now, LJ, so you had like basically I've been in costume rooms before, but like, what does your costume room look like, and what is the team like? Are they always working on some special suit?
Yes,
Repairing some?
Yeah, you know, I always say that I'm only as good as the company I keep. Greg Walker's probably heard me say it 1,000 times, and he knows my team really well. He's come and visited us over at the space, and we've had events there. We actually had the unveiling of Nightwing's suit there, which was really fun and exciting. And you know, we're really passionate about what we do, and we're always looking to raise the bar in terms of, you know, how we construct the suits, you know, the various technologies that we use in terms of the completely custom fabrication, be it the fabric itself or the unconventional materials that we sculpt. And each character has a different sort of, you know, build philosophy behind them. So each one of our shows has a very distinct visual voice that sets it apart from any of our other shows. And then each of our characters within the show have their distinct visual voice. Each one of them, you know, these guys touched on it, you know, they keep using the words cinematic and grounded. And I'm also going to say character driven, you know, it's really, I think we're all aligned creatively in that we're all from the film world, and we all have a very strong, passionate desire to tell stories about humanity. So these characters may be in super suits, but they're still humans.
Right.
And so, you know, it's really important for us to ground them. And so, you know, speaking to your question about Hawk and Dove, for instance, when we were given these characters in season 1 to design, and, you know, Hawk is a dude in a white suit with wings, and Dove is this gorgeous, feminine, you know, embodiment of, you know, femininity in like a baby blue suit with wings. You know, that could have gone real goofy real fast if we didn't really wrap our heads around how we could ground them and have the character, you know, within them really speak to the choices that we made creatively and what we saw on the outside. And in fact, it was a personal challenge that I took when we went for the pitch meeting, and I shared you might remember this, Greg, I shared the concept art for the characters, and heads of church and state were like, well, I mean, they're beautiful, but we're definitely going to have to VFX those wings. And I was like, watch me. So the team and I, you know, took that challenge really seriously. And we had some amazing engineers over at Creative Character Engineering, who are my creative partners and subcontracting vendors who do a lot of our cool stuff. And, you know, we just worked in a very unique way together, with a lot of fittings with the actors, a lot of fittings with the actors and the stunt people, taking some of the choreography of the actual things that our stunt coordinator was, you know, brewing up, so that we could practice and rehearse and make sure that everything kind of pulled together. And when it comes to Dove, it was really important to me. Like, I just kept referencing that I wanted her to be like a living, breathing Georgia O'Keeffe painting, you know, like this beautiful piece of art that's like overtly feminine and a badass because of that, as opposed to, you know, like having it be in contrast with that. Right. So it was really cute actually, because when we finished shooting the first season, Minka had a bit of a break and went to MoMA and sent me a picture of a Georgia O'Keeffe painting that had the exact same
Wow.
color scheme. She's like, we did it. But I had actually our concept artist, Gina, hand draw what she had done in the concept art onto the pattern pieces for the suit that we actually, that's all Gina's hand drawing on the suit that we sublimated onto the fabric. Then we had MC screen print it. And then, like I said, our engineers created those wings out of so many different complex building techniques. And she became very sculptural and beautiful. And then, of course, I will say that Alan is one of the only, if not the only, superheroes of hundreds of suits now that I've built in the last 4 years who didn't need any kind of augmentation to his body.
No, he's literally a super suit.
He's literally a walking superhero.
Now Curran is becoming that too.
Totally ripped. Totally. He came in after the pandemic. I was like, oh, kid, you did not eat a lot of pizza like the rest of us.
Wait, so how much did 3D printing make your life better?
3D printing is awesome, and we use it a lot. But we also use conventional sculpting methods as well, depending on what the needs are and what the character really requires. And we sit down, all of us, and like Greg was saying, there's hundreds of us now. And we sit down and we have these giant meetings, and we really go through piece by piece how we, what our build philosophy will be and how we plan to construct things. And 3D sculpting is definitely, we've got a team of incredibly talented artists that are in that department of the team, and they really knock it out of the park. We're very blessed with, I got the good peeps.
Nice. And now, Ian, you're the relative newbie to the group. You're starting with this season. So is it every production designer's secret dream to get a swing at Gotham City and Wayne Manor?
100%.
I mean, come on.
I grew up under Batman sheets and posters, so I'm a DC guy. So that was like, it's been a dream actually.
So what is your approach? What is your Gotham?
Well, it's a communal Gotham for this season. It's more modern, a little harder edged. It's it's got problems, but it was okay. And I don't know if we could say, Greg, that we paralleled the pandemic in a way in terms of the story arc of the season, where things go bad, and we actually played on a lot of the kind of things that are happening in terms of curfews and masking and vaccinations as part of the storyline in our ancillary background graphics and things. As things fall apart in Gotham, there's a bigger police presence coming in the city. It's dark, that it's people are rioting and stuff like that. So we just played into the zeitgeist of what's happening now quite often.
And you also get to do the GCPD.
Yes.
And all of this, this is, I mean, honestly, talk about being handed the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah. Traditionally, the Gotham PD has been a very Gothic kind of space, and it actually was somewhat established earlier as somewhat Gothic. And we went in opposite direction entirely, found a great location. And we went with a more brutalist feel and brutalist interior, straighter lines, and it's more it's a 60s or 70s building in that kind of style. So less of the Gothic Gotham. Okay.
And now Greg and I spoke a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned we'll be exploring Corey's hometown, basically. So did you get to do a lot of interstellar work as well?
We are doing one interstellar set that shoots next week, and it's
wet.
Right now, it feels like the set from The Wizard of Oz. It's fabulous, but to be fair, LJ, we've taken most of our cues from the concept art for Blackfire and Starfire's uniform or costumes.
Oh, that's amazing!
Because they're so brilliant and the colors are so great. So, and then the jewels and things like that. So we've actually incorporated like the jewels from Blackfire's costume or Starfire's costume into the set. So it kind of reflects in the costume as much as anything.
Oh my gosh, can't wait to see it.
Wait, so I was going to mention about that, I love that Dick and Corey, the Earthlings, basically, their costumes are, you know, their leathers and their armor and things like that. But for Corey and her sister, for Starfire and Blackfire, they're bodysuits. They're like just you know, like a little accessories, and it's very, you know, clearly their uniforms come from another place. And I love that distinction that they are clearly not of this planet.
You just gave me chills. That makes me really happy that you picked up on that. Yeah, we worked really hard to try to create, you know, alloys that would exist from, you know, a Tamaranian culture, as opposed to having them be earthbound. You know, we really, all of those gems that Ian was just referencing, we actually created ourselves. They were inspired by, you know, fire opals and things like that. But we actually ran test upon test until we got them just as I wanted them to be a part of the suit. They're all created, you know, out of our brains and with
Now,
our hands.
for Ian and Boris, so much of the show does happen on locations. You know, like you get to do some great work outside a studio. How does that impact your work? Like, how do you approach, you know, lighting maybe a Gothic building or something almost a little bit more modern in Toronto?
Well, it's an interesting thing because what Ian did this season, what I thought was absolutely perfect, is kind of he borrowed from real locations and brought that feel and elements, architectural elements, into what we built. But also, he would invent stuff in our studio and then take that onto a real location. And I thought that was like I've never seen that done like that. So Ian, you know, like kind of tied the world for us. And as I say, like my job is much easier than his. He kind of sets it up, and we just kind of like go, okay, that's great. But you know, because Gotham reflected real life for us, and it became that real life, you know, in the last year and a half or 2 years, has whatever it's been, has been kind of harsh and like that. That's reflected in our show in a different way, but it's really a reflection of our society. We also had an interesting discussion at the beginning of the season how we integrate colors into our sets and outside of the sets. And we're a show that doesn't have a lot of color, but when it does, and you'll see in this season, there's one prominent color that's a color that kind of stems from our bad guy and spreads through the city, and first in traces, and then it's like bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's just I've actually never been a part of a team that has managed to do this to this extent. And Ian like in his like I don't even know how they did it for like so consistently and in so much of the city.
And I'm guessing that color is probably red.
No.
No,
Really?
not at
No.
all. No.
Because we do have a villain with some red accents. LJ, well, first let's talk Greg bringing in Red Hood. Again, one of those things like, how did it take so long for a show to get around to this kid? Like, this is such a great villain. How are you telling this story that still, you know, kind of pays homage to what we know from the comic books, but is Titans?
Well, you know, look, it was set up by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. The world we live in pretty much is set up by those two geniuses who created. Look, I'm an outsider. You know, I didn't come in, as you know, as a comic guy. I kind of got brought in to kind of manage the chaos and the crazies. And one of the things that I noticed early on in the Perez Wolfman as a newcomer and as kind of a cold read is the kind of struggle the characters were going through. That felt different from the other ones before. And it had been a kind of a, you know, a show about sidekicks. I mean, a book about sidekicks, and suddenly it became a book about teenagers struggling with parents and teenagers struggling with real problems, and it became much more emotional as characters, as LJ said, character driven, and we could really feel the humanity of that group. And so in the pilot that Jeff and Akiva wrote was really about characters struggling with who they are. Rachel kind of not knowing what's inside her, and this kind of haunting. Corey doesn't even know who she is. You have a character in you know, Dick Grayson, who is a mess, you know, in exile from a dysfunctional relationship with his father/mentor, still wounded by the trauma of, you know, of the past. So you have all these people kind of trying to figure out who they are. And that to me always was the most interesting thing about Titans, is get to watch, you have characters already in transition, you know, It's not like you knock on somebody's door and say, hey, you have a beautiful life and, you know, we're going to mess it up, which is a decent and valid dramatic model. This one was everybody's a mess and they're all finding their way together. And I thought to me, that's the most modern, accurate definition of family I know of. There's a bunch of people with problems trying to figure them out together and stay together. And so when I saw it as the kind of dysfunctional family model that really valued family, because I always, Titans has taken a turn, an evolution as it needed to, from a show where darkness really inhibited people and stopped them from being able to do what they wanted to do, to where family actually allows people to be their better selves.
Right.
And that's kind of the tone we're taking throughout this season. Though you have to go, we do drag them through mud and glass and lots of bad things to get there.
And so the way I could see Jason kind of falling into this is almost like in a family when one of them kind of falls into drugs.
Yeah.
And they kind of lose them. Because that's Jason's arc, really, is looking for that escape, looking to feel outside of himself.
And not feeling like, you know, the family fails him and he fails the family, and that they don't use each other as resources. And the consequences of that, the blowback from that, play out in season 3. And it play out in a place where, you know, errors are punished, or certainly you felt, you know, at the core, a place like Gotham where, you know, the bad guys are way badder than anywhere else. And there can be grave consequences to mistakes you make or missteps. And so a lot of trying to kind of repair Jason or a lot of Jason's attempts to repair himself, and he ends up going deeper into his hole. And deeper into the problem, and by associating himself, as we know, you know, with a specific Gotham problematic villain, because Jason's central problem is fear. Jason's central problem is he can't get over the fear and trauma that happened in season 2, so he seeks out the world's most renowned expert in fear,
which gives Ian and Boris a chance to really play in the Arkham world, which is a mood in itself. I can only imagine, like, what is your Arkham like? If GCPD is more of a brutal, less gothic institution, what is our Arkham like?
Our actual Arkham is it's very traditional Arkham. Oddly enough, it's the you know, the Victorian Arkham of the past. So it ties into that pretty well straightforward to the traditional Arkham look.
Does it have the gateway?
It does indeed have the gateway.
Yeah,
got it all. So
I can only imagine, like, the guy that got to make that is probably like, this is the coolest thing too, like doing some ironwork. And LJ, so you get to do Red Hood, which not a hood, and also a very tricky look to pull off.
Yeah, well, I mean, it helps having Curran be more excited than any human could ever be about anything on Earth.
True.
You know,
It really is.
Like he said, he came in ripped, you know, just like right roll, and completely like, yeah, no, it's comfortable, it's great, I can breathe great, you know. Good sport. Because yeah, no, his head is fully encapsulated in the classic Red Hood, you know, non-hood, as you said.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, come on, my team was just geeking out left, right, and center. And it's really just an awesome opportunity that Titans has provided to bring so many of these characters, like you said, to actual, you know, real life in a live action project, for a lot of them for the first time ever.
I just want to add that, you know, I get 13 episodes a season, right? To kind of sink or swim, succeed or fail. Fans are divided. Some love it, some don't. Some are crazy for it. Some wish we were different things. LJ gets one shot. Like she and I are exchanging images, you know, and ideas for months. And as the character designs evolve, they're always really close to the mark at the very beginning, but you know, I'll nuance it or ask for certain things. But then it all comes out in the world on the socials, right? And people they always love it. Like she is 100% hitter in terms of nailing these things. And I think she really deeply and it's because she cares about the characters and the actors love her for caring about the characters and caring about them, that she embodies this artwork, which is, one-dimensional comic artwork.
Right, right.
That would exist, because the Titans that we're doing, they don't really look like the Teen Titans or the Titans Go or George's and Marv's version of it. There's some parallels, but they're really evolved. I mean, there are some later incarnations of books that hint at them, but what LJ does is take it to another level, and it has to function, has to be able to move through space, has to be able to run and not look cheap, have light on and it look like it's falling apart. And she knows what's cheap and what's not, and we pay for it, believe me. But she's right. This fabric's going to look crappy even though it costs less. And then how many for each character are you now making now? Here?
So it depends how many seasons they run for, but right out of the gate, we can really only afford to do 2 heroes and 1 stunt. Although I wish I could do 2 heroes and 2 stunt. And then I've got my amazing team on the ground, led by Hannah and Jesse, who rock the party. And they just, I joke that they play super suits on TV, but they're really just unconventional materials engineered together to look like them. And then my team has to keep them looking great season long.
So is part of your team actually on set for filming to be like just kind of like the pit crew?
Absolutely. And that's a great way of putting it. They're totally the pit crew, and they're absolute rock stars. I just
Yeah. And the ADs always call for super suits, and super suits coming in. It's like
how nervous were you to unveil the Nightwing suit? Because that was a whole thing within the fandom when they just switched from the blue to the red, and like people were not okay.
Yeah, it's funny. Nervous isn't the word I would use, even though I always feel like I'm gonna vomit. It's not because I'm nervous, it's because I'm excited. Right. I'm more excited because we really do our diligence, the whole team of my geek team and me, to make sure that we infuse enough DNA of the characters from the books that it really will resonate with the fans, while also, creating that updated, modern interpretation for our story. So I always feel, knock on wood, pretty confident that the fans are gonna just be so fired up and psyched. But I'm a fan, so and I take it so seriously. So I'm like,
I still think Corey's first season look was just perfect. Like that was just on that verge of like, she could be from Vegas or space.
Yeah.
I loved it. Like she just looked gorgeous. And so Boris, I've been on the set of some of the other superhero shows. These costumes are loud. They are loud. They're leather. They're all squeaky sometimes. What is the biggest challenge when you have because now you're probably using a lot more of like stretchier material, correct?
I would not make my suits loud for Boris, for our sound men. I'm
the only one on this panel who's worn one of the suits. I will say
really?
that. I did a video.
That's true, you did.
For Warner Brothers executive, and I wore the Aqualad suit.
Ooh.
I needed a lot of padding, believe me. I needed a lot of help, but I wore it. There's video, no one's going to see it, but LJ was there when we were shooting it. It was a great day because actually The Office, which is, every comic book's dream there, was also home to like 10 1-week-old kittens or 2-week-old kittens running on the desk. So I did this video with these kittens crawling over, but I was Aqualad for a few precious hours, and the suits fit like bespoke couture suits. They're absolutely form-fitting. You could run in them, you could do anything you wanted, and our because our stunt people have to. So they're not clunky. They need to be fixed.
No, my brother's a DP. I take this and a gaffer. I take it.
You are a DP godsend.
Yeah. Never was there an issue of any kind like that. But I just want to say that Greg is actually ripped, so he probably fit in that.
Right, he probably fit fine, right? He could probably wear the Nightwing suit. So Boris, what is the biggest challenge to staging and shooting the big hero shots? Like we've got when it's like one-on-one, there's a specific kind of muscle you have to use. But when you have a group of them kind of doing a sequence like they did at the carnival last year or the street fair, how much work goes into just choreographing that?
Well, a lot, because you want to basically do justice to each character, right? And that's like you want to make them all look heroic because they are. You want to also represent like if there's anything going on between them, how like you represent that visually. And it's choreographing, like that is a good word, especially when we have a lot of them. And not like it's very hard to shoot something that has like a scene with a lot of characters, but a lot of characters in super suits being active and doing stuff and having that really becomes, we kind of select and choose when we do that,
Right.
because it's a huge undertaking, and we always call Greg about that, and it's like, oh my God, we can't do 3 of these, we can maybe do 2.
And so Ian, when you get to kind of design a sequence, say we've got all of these heroes getting together, with them in so many different kind of, like, if they're all in costume, how do you approach kind of like making a world around them where their costumes are all very disparate?
You know what? I think we mostly rely on the darkness for that, because the costumes are so vivid that we'll just take everything back if there's, we're shooting at night quite often. So, we don't deal with them that much. In fact, like, we're not designing for the costumes per se, because we just have a generally dark palette. They stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
it's also a thing, sorry if I may add to that, it's interesting that they should stand out, like our world is what it is, and then there are superheroes. That really works for us, that they stand out like that.
And we also create the fabrics out of materials and designs. Like, we do a high density screen print of a repeat on most of the fabrics that catch light.
Yeah.
So Boris and his team are able to light in such a way that you can catch a good, rim light, or,
Right.
Totally.
throw a shadow, but still get a little bit of life.
And
Exactly.
LJ, especially with a costume like what Red Hood will be, or maybe even Scarecrow will be, how much do you work with props as well?
Yeah, no, we work with props quite a bit, and a character like Scarecrow, that falls under my sister from another Mister's world. That's Joyce Schur, our costume designer, who I love. Yeah, no, props are a big part of it. I will say that I'm a little bossy, and so I usually design, if there's something if there's something specific to a suit, I'll usually design it, and oftentimes my team will build like the first version of it, and then Ian and the prop masters take all of that information and are able to create the rubber versions of it for stunts, etc., etc.
All right, well, I need to wrap, you guys, but before I let you go, I want to know, when you put in all this work and you work so far ahead, and kind of like sometimes in a bubble, because you're up in Toronto, you haven't seen it yet, you haven't seen how it's all put together because the editors haven't done their magic yet. When you sit down and watch the show, can you remember one moment that you watched and you're like, yes, I nailed it?
Many times.
Yeah. Because
Many times.
I've edited it 100 times, so my experience is much different than everyone else's. So I yield to everyone else on that one.
Well, I will say in season 1, and I'm sorry, Ian, that you missed this magic, but maybe you guys are doing it this season as well. The first few episodes that we shot, Jeff Johns actually came to Toronto, and he got us all together and screened them on the wall of the lunchroom at the studio. And I do think that there was just an electric, energy that took over, because we had all been working for so long to create the show. And this was our first opportunity as a team to see like the magic all come together of this world that we had created together. So, I mean, I would say that, just judging from your awesomeness and how excited you are to just talk to us about, and like all these well-crafted questions you've been asking us, clearly the work that we've put in and the passion that we've put in, is coming across. And so I think in general, like just that, for me anyways, is that's when I get the chills. It's not even watching the work myself. It's living vicariously through folks who watch our work and actually feel like we've nailed it, right?
Yeah. And a lot of our crew, they're fans of the show, of the comic world, and then they watch what they saw on set, and then we add visual effects and all that. And then, you get the phone call when they watch and go, oh my God, we did that. That's so cool. And it falls from the sky and stuff. That's awesome.
And Ian, we'll be seeing all of your work in this new season.
Exactly.
So I'm super excited about that. I cannot wait. And Boris, are you responsible for Connor running through the wall?
I'm not. It's Brendan Stacy.
That was like amazing. That was one of those shots where I'm like, No one else is pulling this shit off. And
That was
LJ, I gotta tell you, for all of the great work, you must love Connor because he's t-shirts and jeans.
I didn't do it. That's Joyce.
Really?
Yeah, Joyce.
Easiest guy to costume, probably, right? Well, listen, you guys, I cannot wait for season 3. This is going to be such a big run. I like new world, new heroes, new villains. I'm so excited. I know fans are. Thank you guys so much for sharing your wisdom and your work with us. And ATX Television Festival, thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.